NSTP 1, Environmental Awareness and Protection Part 1. Our learning objectives for this lesson is at the end of the lesson, the students will be able to enumerate the principles of environment and classify the wastes that pollute the environment. The basic concept and laws governing environmental education. Republic Act number 9512 states that environmental education shall encompass environmental concepts and principles, environmental laws, the state of international and local environment, local environmental best practices, the threats of environmental degradation, and its impact on the human well-being. The states promotes national awareness on the role of the natural resources in the economic growth and the importance of environmental conservation and the ecological balance towards sustained national development. Toward this end, the National Environmental Awareness and Education Act of 2008 was enacted. Continuing on with the basic concept and laws governing environmental education, the responsibility of the citizenry to the environment and the value of conservation, protection, and rehabilitation of natural resources and the environment in the context of sustainable development. Republic Act number 9512, or the National Environmental Awareness and Education Act of 2008, is the law which talks about the policy of the state to protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature and in recognition of the social progress and promote total human liberation and development. Under this law, the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development, in coordination with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or the DENR, the Departments of Science and Technology, and other relevant agencies shall integrate environmental education in its school curricula at all levels, whether public or private, including in barangay daycare, preschool, non-formal, technical, vocational, professional level, and indigenous learning and out-of-school youth courses or program. Continuing on with the basic concepts and laws governing environmental education. In environmental education paradigm, as we can see here, there are at least cyclical elements, which includes awareness, attitude, and action. In all of these three elements, that includes knowledge, skills, concern, research and participation, and citizenry. It shall cover both theoretical and practicum modules comprising activities, projects, programs, including but not limited to tree planting, waste minimization, segregation, recycling and composting, freshwater and marine conservation, forest management and conservation, relevant livelihood opportunities and economic benefits, and other such program or similar programs, and undertakings to aid the implementation of the different environmental or environmental protection law. As we have said earlier, basic concepts and laws governing environmental education includes freshwater and marine conservation, forest management and conservation, relevant livelihood opportunities, and economic benefits. Let us now understand environmental education. Environmental education, or EE, connects us to the world around us, teaching us about both natural and the built environments. EE, or environmental education, raises awareness of issues impacting the environment upon which we all depend, as well as actions we can take to improve and sustain it. Whether we bring nature into the classroom, take students outside to learn, or find impromptu teachable moments on a nature walk with our family, EE, or environmental education, has many benefits for the youth, educators, schools, and the communities. According to Stephen Point, a longtime supporter of environmental education and as an adjunct professor of EE at the University of Wisconsin, he said, and he pointed out, "It is my passion to inspire future educators in this field. Over the years, I have asked each of my classes to share the reason why they teach EE and what it meant or what it means to them, and how it can benefit learners of all ages." According to Republic Act 9512 of Environmental Education Programs, under Section 4, with the heading Environmental Education and Activities as part of the National Service Training Program, stated, "The CHED and the TESDA shall include environmental education and awareness programs and activities in the National Service Training Program, or NSTP, under Republic Act No. 9163 as part of the Civic Welfare Training Service, or CWTS component, required for all baccalaureate degree courses and vocational courses with a curriculum of at least 2 years. Continuing on with Section 5 of the same Republic Act, the Declaration of Environmental Awareness Month. This section, pursuant to the policies set forth in this act, stated, "The month of November of every year shall be known as the Environmental Awareness Month throughout the Philippines." We shall now tackle the 7 environmental principles. The first principle is everything is connected to everything else. The intricate relationship of various elements of the ecosystem bind the components together into one functional unit. The trees in the forest are home for ferns, orchids, birds, insects, and mammals. When these plants and animals die, their products of decomposition contribute to the soil fertility. Plants provide oxygen to animals for aerobic respiration, while animals furnish carbon dioxide to plants for photosynthesis. The quality of the soil determines the type of vegetation that exists, while vegetation contributes to the minerals of the soil when they die. The living components of the ecosystem affect sand and is affected by the abiotic components, such as air, temperature, and land. Interspecific relationships create a dependency with each other so that they both have to coexist to live. All this relationship provides dependencies, check and balances that compose the details of our life support systems. The ecosystem is a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as the weather and the landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. Ecosystems contains biotic or living parts, as well as abiotic factors or the non-living parts. Abiotic factors include rocks, temperature, and humidity. The basic functional unit of nature and the interaction of the community, which are the living components and the non-living environment, compose the ecosystem. All forms of life are important. thus the need for biodiversity. The term biodiversity or biological diversity refers to the variety of life on Earth at all its levels, from genes to ecosystems, and can encompass evolutionary, ecological, and cultural processes that sustain life. Therefore, all organisms have a role in the ecosystem. The third principle is everything must go somewhere. Thus, too much can cause pollution. This encompasses the waste management and environmental management system. Everything must go somewhere. Byproducts of consumption go back to the environment. Everything that we throw away, like pieces of paper, leftover foods, peelings of fruits, plastic wrappers, used containers, they have to go somewhere. Even plants and animals have their own waste, the feces, urine, dead leaves, and plants and animals. It is the law of nature that the byproducts of metabolism return to the soil, acted upon first by the worms, bacteria, and fungi, and then converted into minerals, to be again absorbed by plants and eaten by animals. In short, they enter into a material cycle that is an integral part of the ecosystem. But what happens if what we throw is an artificial product such as plastic? Then, natural bacteria cannot recognize them and may not be capable of breaking them apart. These non-biodegradable products must enter another material cycle, the one that goes to the factory to be manufactured into a new product. Thus, the retrieval, collection, and recycle of these materials become necessary so that they do not pollute the land and our water habitats and watersheds. The fourth principle is that ours is a finite earth. Everything that we need is provided by nature in abundance: food, water, energy, minerals, and air. But however, some resources that we depend upon nowadays are extracted excessively and are slow to replace. These non-renewable resources experience limits of supply. For instance, fossil fuels produced over thousands of years may be exhausted in just 100 years. Some energy sources like water and wood may be replaced easier but have become inaccessible due to pollution and excessive extraction. Diminishing forest cover have resulted from logging, ineffective reforestation, and continued land conversion. However, food scarcity and poverty may have resulted from failed distribution systems rather than the inability of the land and water bodies to yield food. It can be argued that the increasing population decreases the amount of resources available to each person. Carrying capacity, or the ability of the ecosystem to support a number of people, may be influenced by that limit. The fifth principle is that nature knows best. Nature manifests certain processes that enable it to maintain balance and remain in a state of equilibrium. The nutrient cycling of nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus in the air, water, and land indicates that minerals are utilized within the confines of the earth. The flow of energy from the sun enables light to be converted into sugar in plants through photosynthesis, and later for consumer organisms to obtain energy from plant starch. Food chains and food webs allow transfer of energy from producers and consumers and provide the means for all living organisms to acquire nutrition. Population control also occurs naturally through predators or prey relationship. The equilibrium in the ecosystem is maintained, thus, if humans intervene, unforeseen negative impacts known as ecological backlash may arise. For example, floods are oftentimes backlashes of the excessive felling of trees. The sixth principle is that nature is beautiful and we are stewards of God. Creation presupposes the existence of a creator. The beautiful nature around us, perfect by itself, has deteriorated due to the negative impacts of human use. This principle suggests how a human-creator relationship is translated in our attitude towards creation. Theologians explains that there are different levels of this relationship. First, a relationship determined by the dominion of humans over creation, that humans can do as they wish because this was given by God. The book of Genesis says, "Have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air," and so forth. The second level is one of stewardship, that of a caretaker, where humans are not owners but guardians of the integrity of nature. The third level promotes a kinship relationship, postulated by Saint Francis de Assisi in the famous verse, "Brother sun," or "brother sun, sister moon," where humans are no higher than the birds and the fishes of the sea. Fourth is one of sacrament, where nature becomes a testimony of God's love. And fifth, a covenant relationship, where protection of the earth is a life mission manifested in the things that we do and say. And the last principle, or the seventh principle, is that everything changes. Changes in the biophysical world occur naturally. As they say, there is nothing more permanent in this world than change. Consider the following examples. Metamorphosis of caterpillars to butterflies illustrate the morphological changes that occurs in living forms. The increase of vegetation on Earth augmented the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere through time. Seasons are cyclic changes that contribute to the diversity of flowers, fruits, vegetables, and other crops during the year. Random changes manifested by natural catastrophes such as typhoons destroy forests, coral reefs, and mangroves. Volcanic eruption annihilate surface flora and submerge rivers. Human-induced alterations such as climate change may cause more massive repercussions. Land use change from forest to agricultural land to human settlements change the composition of the vegetation and animals. Human-induced changes can be managed so that the negative impacts are minimized and positive change accentuated. Environmental Impact Assessment, or the EIA, provides a tool for the projection, planning, and management of changes brought about by industrialization and human settlement expansions. Effluents can be managed through policy and pollution control techniques by both industry and government to achieve clear air and water. Sustainable development presents a paradigm of change for the 21st century. Sustainable development promotes ecological integrity, equitable sharing of resources, and people empowerment. Climate change is a change in the patterns of weather and related changes in oceans, land surfaces, and ice sheets occurring over time scales of decades. Climate change may be attributed to natural processes such as sun's radiations, volcanoes, or internal variability in the climate system. What is climate change? Climate change is the long-term alteration of temperature and typical weather patterns in a place. Climate change could refer to a particular location or the planet as a whole. Climate change could be attributed through the burning of different materials which releases what we called greenhouse gases into Earth's atmosphere. Climate change can also be due to human influences such as changes in the composition of the atmosphere or land use. As climate change becomes a world concern, scientists and experts identified solid waste as one of the contributory factors in the global warming or the rising of the temperature of the Earth. Thus, the development of ecological solid waste management process. Ecological solid waste management is the systematic administration of activities to provide for segregation of the solid waste, segregated transportation of the same, storage, transfer, processing, treatment, and the disposal of solid waste and all other waste management activities which do not harm the environment. Concluding the part 1 of this lesson, our learning outcomes are, at the end of the discussion, the student must be able to apply the environmental principles in his/her everyday life and rethink their role in the preservation and reversal of the harsh effects of man's activities against the environment.